All right, let's get this started. Hey guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining again on this workshop in regards to understanding, budgeting basics. So today we're going to dive into the core foundation of successful business management, which is budgeting. Okay, every successful business is built on a strong budget, and which is the unseen foundation of triumph. So I just want to go in and tell you guys a little bit about myself. My name's Leilani. I am a CEO of Be Chic LLC and the Be Chic Retail Group, along as a partner of Sage Consultants. Tell you a little bit about my journey. So budgeting didn't always come easy to me. It was something I had to learn along the way, and I learned through a lot from the school of hard knocks. And in order to have a successful company, I quickly realized it was imperative to know your numbers. Okay. I was tired of living paycheck to paycheck. And when I mean paycheck to paycheck as a business owner, you're really looking for payment from a vendor, or you're looking for payment from a customer, or you're anticipating a sale in order for you to plan your business accordingly. Whereas if you had an effective budget, you're not waiting for the customer to get paid. You've already budgeted kind of the law of averages of how long it takes for a customer to pay you. And so having a good budget was necessary in order to weather the seasonality of business, okay? Because that was tough for me, especially in the fashion accessories industry and retail in general. You have highs and lows. Fourth quarter is high because it's Christmas, Mother's Day, or Valentine's Day, but then come September, October, and half of November, it dies. And so if you're not planning and budgeting accordingly, you're really suffering in the low months. And then what ends up happening is I didn't budget myself correctly, that there were these great opportunities, investment opportunities that presented themselves, and I didn't have the funds to invest in those because I wasn't budgeting for investments. So I really felt it was important to get to know my numbers, to budget effectively. And then that way I could feel like I had a secure safety net. Having a great plan was giving me the ability to dream again, dream about taking those vacations, or dream about purchasing another property, or bringing on more team members into our organization. And by doing that, I was able to accomplish those things and grow the company to where it is today, and budgeting was the cornerstone of it. All right. So what we're going to be covering today is first, we're going to go over the importance of budgeting, because knowing your numbers, again, is essential for growth. The second part is we're going to go over the components of a budget. This is not your mama's way of budgeting. This is not just getting a notebook out and scribbling numbers saying, okay, light bill average $325, water bill average $125. This is not your mama or your papa's way of budgeting. And then I'm going to go over the common budgeting mistakes. Okay, so we're going to go through some common errors and misconceptions of effective budgeting. And then we're also going to go over the steps to create an effective budget. And then part 5 is really maintenance of a good budget. Some categories will need you to update your budget on a daily basis, on a weekly, monthly, and then some quarterly. But I'll be going over how to maintain and update a budget accordingly. Okay. So the next, I just want to go over this right here, which is the first part of the importance of budgeting. Why it matters. Okay. So first off, it really does ensure your financial health. Okay. If you have your personal budget, it's securing your personal financial health. In this case, we're talking about a business budget. So it's securing the financial health of your business. Wouldn't it feel great if you got money in the bank, and if you had investments for rainy days or upcoming opportunities, and having a really well-planned budget, it will reduce your stress, okay? And then it's going to make sure it sets up your company for profitability. It also is going to provide clarity on spending. So knowing where all your money is going is absolutely necessary to running your business. It's going to show you where you're overspending. It can show you where you can cut back, and it can also show you where you can take more risks. It also allows for growth planning. Most of us go into a business to grow, right? So having the resources, i.e., money, to do so is important, right? Because it's going to sustain the business over the long term. And then it's also going to make sure we're allocating our resources efficiently and effectively. So budgeting really isn't just about the numbers, right? It's ensuring the health and sustainability of your business. Okay, so what do we have here? This is going to be talking about budgeting as a roadmap. Okay, so knowing your numbers is going to allow you to make strategic decisions. Okay, it's going to allow you to make decisions on new investments. Maybe you need to buy new equipment, or maybe you need to get new software that would help. It would help the productivity in your company and streamline your processes. Right? It aligns with business goals. So most goals require financial resources, and having an effective budget will help you to achieve those goals, right? And if you're budgeting for pitfalls, it helps ease the financial burden and navigate the circumstances with grace. Because there's a lot of times where you have things that just pop up into your sphere, and you really don't know how you're going to handle those issues. But if you have a good budget, there's somewhat of predictability on how you can handle these challenges that arise out of nowhere. Okay, so let's talk about the relationship between budgeting, profit, and growth. Okay, profit is budgeting and growth, right? They have direct correlations to the profit, right? Growth is budgeting of profits that helps support investment decisions. And then you've got budget is really just profit and growth, which mitigates your financial risks. So as you can see, budgeting is the primary tool that leads to both growth and profits. And the combination of all three create a stability within that organization. So I really like this quote, right? Dave Ramsey is a financial guru. He came up with the envelope system for ways to budget yourself. And he's come up with various books, and he's been on various talk shows where he talks about how to effectively budget your life, right? And so he has this quote here that says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went." And I really love that, because once you have an effective budget and you know exactly how you're allocating your resources, your money, you're not asking and waiting for things to happen to you. You are making them happen for you. Okay. And so really, as Dave Ramsey aptly puts it, planning ahead and allocating strategically is key. All right. So let's go over the components of a budget, right? There's revenue forecasting. So for predicted income streams, you want to think about your regular customers, okay? Your contracts, your sales. At most businesses, if you're just starting out, right, and you're going into business, you probably already have a couple of customers to purchase from you. When you were a side hustle, they purchase from you on a regular basis. Those are your regular customers. Or maybe you're in the middle of landing a rather large contract, right? Or a big sale. And these people are planning on buying from you in the future again and again. Or maybe they already have a forecasted amount they will be purchasing from you. Okay, so these are your predicted income streams. Then there's going to be your seasonal variation. So most businesses have a season where business is just booming, right? Like I told you guys earlier, for me, it was Q4, which is, Black Friday sales, and all of December for Christmas. It was Valentine's Day, there's Mother's Day, and then somewhat in the summer, depending on the product line. For example, in the automotive industry, if you're working in the automotive industry, typically March to May is high, and then September to December. If you're in hospitality, typically is November to March, right? And then June to August for the summer months. So most businesses have that seasonality. So think about that as far as income streams, right? And forecasting your revenue. And then really, I want you to set realistic expectations. And what I'm talking about is, so if you're taking in the seasonality of your business and the repetitive income stream, i.e. your regular customers, if you're taking them into consideration, please be realistic about the expectations. Okay. So hopefully you have a little bit of data that says that's stating, okay, well, I've sold this much over the summer. I can expect to probably sell the same amount, if not more, the following summer. And that's where we're saying setting realistic expectations. Don't go and say, okay, well, I sold $4,000 in the month of June. I'm going to sell $8,000 in the month of June. Where is that data coming from? How did you come up with a figure of 8,000? And it has to be realistic. That's where I'm saying be very realistic in your expectations when you're forecasting your revenue. So it's not about, forecasting is not about knowing your exact numbers, but it is, like I said, being realistic with your revenue expectations. So knowing this is the base of starting your first budget. Okay. So now let's go over another component of budgets, which is fixed expenses. Okay. Most of you, if you're already living through life, to have somewhat of an idea of what your reoccurring monthly costs are. So in your personal side, that could be your mortgage, that could be your car payment, the car insurance, your electricity bill, your water bill. All of those things are reoccurring monthly costs. Okay. Now let's take that into the business, right? So a reoccurring monthly cost for a normal business could be, equipment leases or subscriptions. For example, for myself, as far as subscriptions go, I have to pay every month for my website renewals, or I need to pay every month for my domain and my email for Gmail. So those are the subscriptions I'm talking about. Equipment leases could be if you are in construction and you're having to lease out major equipment to run your construction company, that would go ahead and be considered a monthly cost. Insurance, it could be liability insurance, okay? It could be automotive insurance. It could be your general contracting insurance. All of that is considered a reoccurring monthly cost. So just think about what those reoccurring monthly costs are. Those are your fixed ones. They are the ones that don't change and they have to be paid every month, okay? And so the importance of tracking them is you want to be able to know your cost control, okay? And what I mean by cost control, so if your fixed cost, if your car insurance, right, is $200 a month, and all of a sudden the next month it's $225, you'll want to investigate a little bit as to why did it go up $25. So you have cost control over that. So either you can investigate it and say, oh yeah, it went up 25 because that's just what happened on renewal. Or now maybe you need to shop around and find a different way to bring it back down. Okay. Also, it's going to help you with cash flow management. So by knowing your fixed costs, the costs are absolutely essential to run your business. So you're going to make sure you can have enough cash on hand to meet these expenses, right? Because you want to maintain smooth operations. Also, pricing strategies. So in our case, for when we're selling our jewelry, I have to take in consideration those fixed costs because of our fixed overhead costs that need to be factored into the pricing of our product to make sure we are covering our costs. And then loan and credit assessments. Okay. If you at one point you're having, that amount of revenue coming in and you have your expenses covered every single month and you've got some profit left over, you'll be able to go back to a bank and say, look, these are my fixed costs. This is the amount of revenue coming in. I've got this in profit, or we're going to go a little bit more. There's a little bit more to that, but let's just say for easy numbers, now I've got a little bit of profit. You can now present your case to a bank and possibly obtain a loan. So that way you could have some working capital. And then also, just that risk management. Like I said, your fixed costs have to be paid regardless of business performance. So if I have a slow month in our company, those costs have to be paid no matter what. So knowing those costs for me can help mitigate any financial risks during any downturn months or years. All right. So now let's talk about variable expenses. Okay. And what are variable expenses? They can be taxes. Okay. So your taxes might vary depending on how well or not well your company did for the year, right? Or if you have to pay sales taxes every quarter to the state, that could be variable too, because if you sold more, you're collecting more taxes that are due back to the state. Travel expenses. I have to travel quite a bit for my company. However, I don't travel every single month. I have certain months I travel and others that I don't. So I have to take those are variable expenses. They're not going to be the same every single month. Office supplies. Okay. If you have a bunch of office supplies, I'm going to run through more office supplies during my busier season than I would on the slower ones. So just think about those varying expenses, and they vary by industry and business. All right. And those are the ones that a lot of people tend to miss those variable expenses. However, the best way I can tell you to figure out what your variable expenses are is just to go back through your statements and take a look at when you were spending things for office supplies or legal services or maybe even part-time labor. You're tracking all that, no matter where they're at in your year, in the past 12 months, track those and make sure you have it noted somewhere what expense came up throughout the year that does not come up every single month. And then that way you can budget for those effectively. So I like this one. This is another quote, right? So Leslie Tang, who is she? She is a New York financial attorney, and she has frequently appeared on national news and radio stations. And her quote says, budgeting has only one rule: do not go over budget, right? It's so simple, but so true. If you are making a budget for yourself, okay, and for your business, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to allow myself $400 to spend in restaurants that month. Okay, well, that's it. Do not go over budget. You already said it for yourself. And I guess that's the part where you have to have a little self-restraint and say, okay, I'm getting close to the mark. I don't want to go over on this. Or if I need to go over on this, where am I pulling it from someplace else to make up for that differential, right? But in totality, if you set a budget, do not go over it. One rule. Okay, so let's talk about some common budgeting mistakes. All right, and that's not accounting for all expenses. When I'm talking about not accounting for all expenses, so there are those variable expenses, and those are typically within your sphere and your awareness. You know they come out like, taxes have to be paid. That's something that's in your awareness. But what we're going to talk about the hidden ones. Okay, so for example, annual fees and maintenance costs, right? This possibly only comes out one time a year, and it's so easy to forget these. I've done it multiple times. One of the ones that I tend to forget about quite often is the annual renewal for the state of Florida for my business, right? It's as simple as going on sunbiz.org. I think I pay, $150, and it's done. But I forget about it almost every year, until I started setting up myself a calendar reminder on getting, my VA is sending me notices saying, hey, remember to pay this. So those little expenses, annual fees or licenses, right? If you have some licenses, prime example, Adobe, I have an annual renewal on my Adobe license. That comes out in February, I think, or Dropbox comes out in March or February. Those little things like that, you tend to forget because it only happens one time a year. So I like to think about, how the expenses are, right? So you see this, you're taking a look over here at the iceberg, right? So your visible expenses are here, okay? They're just the top of the iceberg here. This is what you remember, you see, it's in your awareness, you don't forget about it. But then look at all of this down here, okay? These are the things that will take down the Titanic. Okay, it's the stuff that you're not seeing that's going to take you down, because they'll catch you off guard if you're not actually keeping them in your awareness. Okay, so pretty much don't get caught off guard. Know your numbers. All right, another one, another common budgeting mistake, and I think we tackled this on a few slides prior. It's being overly optimistic on your revenue predictions. Okay, I've done it as well. Pet friends who've done it as well, because entrepreneurs, and business owners, are typically very optimistic people. So when we tend to we're budgeting ourselves thinking, yes, we're going to 10x our growth. So if I made like we in that example previously, if I did 4,000 in the month of June last year, I'm going to do 8,000 in the month of June the following year. I'm going to double my money. Now that could be a little bit conservative, but I've done it in the past and I made a mistake. I'm like, yes, if I'm going to do, I did 4,000 last year. Guess what? I'm going to do 40,000 this year because I'm going to 10x. I'm going to do this and this and this and to 10x my money. That's being overly optimistic. Okay. So, what ends up happening if you overestimate your sales, right, is that you end up basing a lot of your decisions, your financial decisions are going to be based on overly optimistic numbers that could actually set yourself up for some very harsh lessons in business financing. So it's great to be optimistic, but really our budgeting should be grounded in reality. So if you did 4,000 in the month of June, have a very conservative number of 10, maybe even if you say 20 or 30% growth, have that as a very conservative number that you can grow by. And if you do more, great, but your business was already operating on a conservative budget. So any additional money that comes in is just bonus. Another common budgeting mistake is ignoring the irregular and annual costs. I know we talked about that too, like the licenses to renewal, stuff like that. But it's also like keeping in mind, it's just saving for the monthly. So prime example, I have my Florida annual renewal that comes up every year. It's $150. Well, what I do in my budget is I take that 150 and I divide it by 12. And so in the budget, in our financial budget, right away, a percentage of that is being saved for every single month. So when the renewal comes up, the money was already put away in the business savings for that particular expense, right? So I did a few things. I made it part of my awareness. So it's no longer hidden. It was in my visible expenses. I went ahead and acknowledged the cost. It was $150. I divided that, so I'm saving for it incrementally over 12 months. So when that payment became due, it wasn't a hidden expense. It didn't catch me off guard, and the money was already in the cap to cover it. All right. And so the part of having that already in my awareness allowed me to make sure the contingency fund was fed over a period of time, over a constant period of time. All right. So planning for the rain by saving during the sunny days is one of the main ways that you're going to ensure the business health of your company. Or not, the financial health of your company. I'll get that right. So Jen Sincero, she's the author of You Are a Badass, okay? And she has helped people transform their personal and professional lives. And by, her books, her speaking engagements, her webinars. And she came up with this quote that says, the art of budgeting is not about restricting something. It's about opening and expanding. Okay. And I really love that because budgeting is really about creating opportunities. It's not about limiting potential. So let's talk about the practical steps of creating a budget. And the first thing is gathering your data. Okay. So to really create an effective data, you need to get some data. Okay. If you've already been in business for a while, you might already have some of these, like past bank statements, invoices and receipts, sales and income records, right? If you're just starting out, you might not have access, and that's okay. Okay. That is definitely okay. However, you should have a general idea of the typical expenses for your industry. All right. And this is where contingency fund will come in hand, right? Because every piece of data tells a story. And so gathering all of it to inform your budget narratives will be very important. So if you're just starting out in business, I recommend doing some research. Okay. When I say you should have a general idea of your typical business expenses, I'm telling you, go do some research. Okay. If you're looking at getting into starting your own painting company, get on Angie's list and see how much you're typically charging per square footage of paint, see how much other people are charging, and get a rough idea, of what expenses could be associated with what you're charging. Okay. And so the next one we're going to talk about is estimating your revenues and your costs. So I've been saying, do not overestimate. Don't be overly optimistic with your revenue forecast. Okay. And so research is going to be your best friend. So if you've just started out, I told you in the last slide to go ahead and research your costs. Well, this is researching your revenue. And so the internet really contains a plethora of information and statistics. So really get into the grind, ask questions, and look for answers. If you've already been in business, okay, you should have some historical data on what you earned in the previous months or years. And you'll be using that as your basis for estimating your revenues. If you are not in business yet and you're looking at getting into business, historical data analysis is going to be your friend. Okay. Looking at market research and trends, and then getting an expert advice, seek some expert advice, look for a community, look for support. Maybe there's plenty of Facebook groups out there now for people in various industries that you could actually join and just throw some questions there. How much I actually got targeted on Facebook not too long ago for people who own their own, balloon decorating companies. So there's a really big trend going on right now, and for hosting for parties that they'll do this beautiful balloon arch, right? Just hit my elbow. They'll do a beautiful balloon arch, and if you go into the comments, you'll see people saying, "Hey, I'm looking at charging $200 for this type of arch. Is that enough?" You'll see a bunch of comments of people saying, "No, it's not enough. You should charge this because I charge that." And so just collect all that data. Look at the comments. Do a little bit of research. What could you, accurately estimate as a revenue depending on your industry? And then again, if you don't, after doing all your research and you still have questions, just get a consultation. You can come to us with Sage and we'll help you out as best as possible. Or maybe you already have a mentor that's in the business and you can lean on them for advice. Okay. So using history as our guide will really shape our financial future. And then I want you to be open to, adjusting and refining. Just because you set a budget, you did your research, right? You've estimated your revenues. You've brought out all your fixed and variable costs. You've researched any hidden costs, and you make sure that they're now visible and in your awareness. So you've done all of these, and you've set your budget. I do want you to be open that a budget is an evolving document. Okay, it will evolve and it can be changed. It doesn't mean it's concrete and unchangeable, right? A budget is fluid. So doing periodic budget reviews, adapting to any of the changed circumstances. For example, if you had a software that you were paying $300 a month for, and now you found an alternative software that has more tools and more, just more things incorporated into it that would help your current business model, but it costs a little bit more. Well, that can be budgeted now into a new budget. It could be, I'm going to go ahead and my previous one cost me $300 a month. My new one's going to cost me $500 a month. Well, let me see where I can take $200 a month from various other categories and expenses to help offset that extra $200. Okay. So just know that budget is fluid. You can make changes, but it only can be changed if you're doing your budget reviews. Okay. So go ahead and make sure you're looking at your budget on a frequent basis. This is not political. Okay. I didn't put this quote here to be political, but it is relevant to what we're speaking about. Okay. So Joe Biden, I'm right now speaking on February 17th of 2024. Joe Biden, our current president, he gives this quote that says, "A budget gives you permission to spend." Okay. Spending money without it is dangerous. And it's true. Okay. If you're just going, if you had $80,000 in a bank account and you just going with your debit card and swat, 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 and you're just going ahead and going at it and you're just swiping that card everywhere and you were spending freely without any control, you would run out of $80,000 or you would spend all that $80,000 before you know it. And at the end, you'd probably be looking around saying, what do I have to show for it? Okay. Having a budget, which is pretty much just spending the money that's already in the account according to what you need and what you want, is the only way to spend. Okay. Because if you don't spend it that way, it is very dangerous. Okay. So let's talk about the reviews. Remember, I told you you can have your budget. You've done all your work. You've set your budget. It's okay to change your budget because a budget is fluid. However, it's important to make sure that you're reviewing it on a consistent basis. So the question I often get is, how often should I look at my budget? Right? Many clients of ours, that's the number one question. Should I be looking at it once a month? That's when I pay my bills. Should I be looking at it, every 2 weeks? And so I'm going to tell you this, and this is the advice I give to everyone. When you are first getting your budget together, okay, you first got your budget together, and you're going through and you're allocating all your expenses, and then you're paying your fixed expenses and stuff like that. In the beginning, every day, right? And the first complaint I get every day, but that's going to take me forever. It's not going to take you forever, but it will take time. Okay. It will take dedication from you to review your budget and review your spending every day. So I like to go and I like to explain to people that if you're deciding to go into business, right, you are committing to a lifelong journey. Okay. And any great thing that you earn in life, any accomplishments that you do came over a period of time. It didn't just happen right away. Maybe it feels like you just hit your goal all of a sudden. It's not that. You worked at it consistently over time to achieve that goal. Well, your budget's the same way. Budgeting is a goal. If you remember in our last workshop, budgeting was a goal. This is a goal. Having a highly effective budget for your company is a goal. And so to achieve this goal will take time and consistency. So in the beginning, every day, you will look at your budget, you will review your spending, you will allocate your funds. Okay. And then after a few months, it can then turn into once a week. Because at that point, 3 months down the road, you are really familiar with your expenses. You're really familiar with how you're going to allocate your expenses. And after a few months, you're kind of getting into the groove of how to spend effectively. Okay. And then after that, after about 6 months now, you can start doing it once a month. But in the beginning, it's every day for 3 months. And 3 months, you're doing it once a week. And then at that point, after 6 months, 6 to 7 months, you can start doing it about once a month. Okay. This way you can start picking up on, inconsistencies. If you start seeing, month to month, there's certain expenses that are higher or lower, you can start investigating as to why is it higher or lower, right? You'll be capturing new expenses. That's where we're talking about picking up on those hidden expenses, right? Instead of them being hidden, they're now visible. And then it's also making sure it's aligning with your goals, right? If part of your financial goals is to make sure you have $100,000 in some sort of contingency fund for your business, well, doing regular reviews of your budget can ensure that you're hitting those financial goals. If your marketing goal is, everything's tied into your budget. If you want to increase your sales by 20%, maybe you need to run a marketing campaign to go ahead and capture new customers. Well, in this case, if you were running a marketing campaign to capture X amount of customers to get X amount of increase in revenue dollars, right? Now you need to know how much do you have available to spend on that marketing campaign. And then you want to make sure you're staying within that budget. And if that marketing campaign is effective. Okay. This is going into adjusting for changes. We talked about that a budget is fluid, right? I also want to, in this particular slide, I want to talk about, when is it needed to change your budget? So we talked about it's okay to change your budget. Now let's talk about when. Okay. So it's okay to change your budget when you're accounting for new projects or shifts in your business model. Okay. Let's say a new project is you want to launch a new product line. Okay. I currently, let's just say I was only selling jewelry and I wanted to launch into makeup. Okay. That is a new product line that's outside of my current industry, which is fashion accessories. So I would need to budget for that, right? I would need to start looking into how I'm going to allocate my resources effectively for that new product line launch, right? So I would need to change my budget. If you're trying to scale up in your goals or down in your goals. So scaling up could be, I want to sell so many, like our last workshop, we talked about increasing your average cart order. Okay, well, you're scaling up your average cart order, right? So you might need to change your goals on how you're going to do that. Again, maybe you need to allocate more money for marketing, right? Maybe you need to start looking at buying more product because you're going to be offering seasonal sales. All of that needs some sort of budget involved with how you're going to execute your actionable steps and those SMART goals in order to achieve the greater goal, which is increasing your cart value. Okay. And then adapting to market changes, right? If there's a downturn in the market, maybe your budget needs to be scaled back a bit, right? To account for that downturn in the market. So adapting to market changes would also be a reason to change your budget. So change is inevitable, okay? But with an adaptive budget, it's also manageable. So let's talk about monitoring your cash flow, okay? The cash flow, I want you guys to think of it as the lifeblood of your business, right? You don't want to bounce checks, right? You don't want to keep getting hit with NSF fees. So making sure you know how much money is in your bank and how much and your variable expenses or your fixed expenses, making sure you have enough money for those expenses to cover the operations of your business is important, right? That's that lifeblood. Because if you're starting to spend money and you don't have enough money in your account, that's where those NSF fees come into play. And so just making sure that you remain in the black, right? Positive cash flow. And then anticipating your lean months. So knowing your numbers, right? Doing your market research, looking at the trends, historical trends. This will help you know your lean months and then plan for them, right? So the cash flow is the heartbeat of our business. Monitoring it closely is going to keep your business thriving. One of the worst feelings is seeing your bank account in the negative. Okay, been there again, done that. And then you start getting into this mindset of, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get this bill paid, right? It's one of the worst feelings. So this quote comes from Susie Orman, right? Another personal financial expert, right? She's written over, I'd say, a dozen best-selling books around personal finance. She states that budgeting is not an exercise. It's a way to ensure your business future, right? It is so true. This is not optional. I think, exercising and keeping your physical body in the best physical shape, people look at it as an option, right? It really isn't. Because if you want to make sure you feel your best, staying active and exercising is important. Well, your business is the same thing, right? If you want your business to feel its best, making sure you have a good budget is not an option, all right? It's necessary. So I want to go ahead and recap what we've gone over, right? We've talked about the importance of budgeting, how it affects your business, how making sure, having a great business or having a good budget around your variable expenses, your fixed expenses is going to make sure your business health, the financial health of your business is optimal, right? We talked about key components and steps. So what are the steps you need to take in order to start setting up your budget, your historical research? If you're already in business, looking at your past 12 months of bank statements or however many months you have of bank statements, and starting to look to see how can you extract that information to give you an accurate understanding of both what you have spent and the money that has come into your business, right? So revenue forecasting and cost forecasting, right? And then we also talked about embracing change and adjustment. So you've gathered your data in order to create your budget. You've created your budget. So doing regular reviews, right? So making sure that you're looking at it for the first 3 months, you're looking at it every day. And then after that, for another 3 months, you're looking at it every week. And then after that, at the 6th or 7th month mark, you're then looking, you've gained enough exposure to your budget. You can then start looking at it once a month. But then as you're doing these periodic reviews, you're able to make changes accordingly. And then we also talked about what are some of the changes you can make and why would you make those changes? You know, if you're growing your company, if you need to scale back because of market conditions, or if you have new accounts, new projects that are coming up, all of those things, well, you know, you can do adjustments to your budget accordingly. If those things come up into your sphere. And then just embracing the fact that some changes will have to be made at times, right? Because I think some of the hardest things that people have and clients have had with me in the past is that once they created a budget, they felt it was so concrete that they were rigid, they did not want to move. When I'm saying it's okay, embrace the change. If it aligns with your values, right? Your why, your end goal and your why, make the change. So we've laid the groundwork, right? We really have laid the groundwork for budgeting. In our next workshop, we're going to start exploring the tools that can bring these principles to life. And what I mean the tools is really going to come around that digital shift in business finance. All right, we spoke about that in the very first week, the very first workshop. We spoke about how there are tools out there and softwares out there that can really help you with this budgeting. So you're not alone. This is not your mother's way of budgeting. Pen and paper is not something that's necessary in order to budget effectively. There are softwares. AI is a huge, that intuitive budgeting planning is out there. It completely revolutionized the way I even budget. Okay. And we will be going over those tools in an upcoming workshop. So if you have already purchased a Platinum package, you will have access to that financial workshop where I go over that digital business shift that's happening and how you can incorporate that into your current business model, or if you're launching your business, into that business model of the business you're launching. I will be going over that. If you do not have access to that, or if you did not purchase that package, please contact us. I would love to be able to provide you a glimpse as to what we will be covering. And then you can make a decision if you'd like to go ahead and join us for that workshop. So guys, if you need any help, please feel free to reach us. You can reach myself or you can reach Kristen at sageconsultants.com. We would love to hear from you. And please visit our website if you'd like to know a little bit about Kristen or a little bit about myself. Our stories on there, where we came from, how we built our businesses, things we've learned along the way. We'd love for you to read it. Also, we do have a podcast called Books and Booze. You can find us on YouTube, where we do go over various books. We review a book a month, and the books are centered around personal growth and business optimization. And the information that comes out of that book can most definitely be applied to your current business model. So please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe Books and Booze on YouTube. And if you need more assistance, or if you'd like, and if you're interested in joining us on our monthly webinar, please reach out to us. That's another way you can have regular contact. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this Budgeting Basics. I hope you found this helpful, and I really look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. All right.